Like I said, it happens, and hopefully some kids can learn from it, but just don't get caught.
Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. With me, as always, actually never. It's Thursday night at 12:24 a.m. On Thursday. Alex Speers. Alex, what's up?
What's up, Andrew? Are you done with all your duties?
Done with some duties. Yeah, it was
Cool.
It was an amazing night here in Brooklyn at the NBA draft.
Where were you posted up all night?
So I was on the floor.
Situation?
So I was on the floor, like behind. So there's media seating right behind where the players are on the floor. We're just like sitting right there at like a table and right behind those guys. Like I was probably 30 feet from Wemby. This is amazing. It was so cool. And yeah, it was great. It was a great time. Let's talk about the Thunder, and then we can talk a little bit of general draft stuff.
Yeah.
But the Thunder made a trade for Davis Bertans and the 10th pick, which is something that we've talked about a lot. It's great because it really just only involves ownership, right? An ownership decision to basically buy the 10th pick from the Mavs. And they got their guy, Cason Wallace. Turns out
Davis Bertans.
The Thunder's guy is Davis Bertans, and Cason Wallace was a throw-in. No, they got Cason Wallace in this trade. Obviously, they felt the need to trade up for him. But what was your initial reaction when you saw that it was Cason Wallace?
I remember he was like one of the first guys you and I talked about, like way at the beginning of this process. And I've liked him throughout the entire process, but I had just, for whatever reason in my head, just assumed they weren't going to draft him. So I hadn't been thinking about him as much as of late.
Mm-hmm.
But everything I felt about him originally still stands. I mean, I think that he offers, it's hard to say he offers size for position because he is only 6'3". I think he's like 6'2.5" without shoes. But he has a 6'9" wingspan, I think.
Yeah.
I was actually comparing his measurements to Dort. Dort is like a quarter of an inch taller. They have the exact same wingspan, but Cason has a longer standing reach.
Yeah.
He also weighs like less than Dort. He weighs 20 pounds less than Dort or something.
He's beefy, but like Dort is
super beef.
Super beefcake. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I always liked the idea of him just because in some ways it does feel kind of like a luxury pick, because the Thunder do have a lot of good guards. Like they have a nice guard rotation right now. And we saw last year, like they bring in someone like Isaiah Joe and all of a sudden they have like another guard that's really good. But I think it's going to give them a lot of flexibility and make them a lot scarier on defense. Like I already thought they kind of had a really good defensive foundation. But you now think about, Dort, Cason Wallace, Kenrich, and Chet, like those four guys as defenders, and likely two of them are going to be on the court at every time.
Yeah.
That is some high-level defenders that you would have. And I hope, and I'm assuming we're going to get some Dort, Cason minutes together, which I think would be really fun.
Have to. I actually got a short interview with him that I will put on the end of this podcast. I actually asked him about that a little bit, and he seemed very excited.
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it.
I just won't spoil it too much. But yeah, no, I think that he is interesting. According to Synergy, on guarded threes, he shot 34%, and then on unguarded, he shot 35%.
Yeah, and the big story with his season, for people who don't know, is that he was playing mostly in an off-guard position until about January when Kentucky's point guard went down. But that also happened to be the point where Cason started having back spasms. And so up until that point, he was shooting like 41% on threes. And then once those back spasms starts, his percentages started to decline. And so he ends up, I think, like in the mid-30s for the season. But he had showed that he was like a legit shooter before those injuries started happening in January, and also when he started taking on a much bigger offensive role. I think one of the pitches for Cason on this OKC team is that you're going to be able to like maximize what he can do without putting too much strain on his abilities.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You're going to be able to find the things that he is best at and emphasize them the most. Because I know, like, we talk about the defense with him a lot and comparing him to Dort, but like offensively, he's a much different player than Dort. Like, he offers you so much more than Dort. He has like a great assist to turnover ratio, like a really good decision maker. And, you know, he's probably not going to be a lead guard in OKC. You know, it's not going to be like that second half in his Kentucky season. But he absolutely is a guy who you can pass to and he can drive and make a decision and make a play. That is, he absolutely fits that bill.
Yeah, at the rim, he was 64% at Kentucky.
Which is good. So
according to Synergy, very good.
Percentage, very good. Excuse me. So I was excited. I guess I was just a little surprised, even though the pick does make sense to me. I was just so ready to expect a quote unquote project pick, which I do not really think Cason Wallace is, in the same way that like
he's definitely not.
Any of the, like, whether it's Koulibaly or Leonard Miller or like Rayon Rupert, like any of these other guys that we were kind of throwing out there, he does not fit that mold in any way.
No, I that's what made me a little bit more excited, is that I think you're going to see Cason Wallace minutes right away.
Yeah. In fact, you know, like, good news, bad news. I think this was good news for guys like Poku, Ousmane Dieng.
Yeah.
The fact that they didn't really bring in another big so far, obviously, well, they did bring in Davis Bertans. I'll take that back.
They did bring in Bertans.
Bad news.
Watch out, Poku. Bertans.
Watch out, Poku. Bad news, like Trey Mann, you have to imagine it's going to be hard to find minutes for Trey Mann.
He's got to have a great summer. Hashtag got to have a great summer.
And he'd probably he need to outplay some of these guys, both in summer and in preseason.
Has to. Or else he's just not going to make it. And that's okay. That's just the way that this goes. If you're going to rebuild your team like this, with this many young players, with this many draft picks, some guys are going to get left behind. And that's just the nature of it. And you would always kind of wonder from the beginning with Trey, especially watching him at Florida, and then seeing him play for a couple years, like, how is he going to hold up defensively was always a question. And he had moments where he was competing at a high level, but it still was a question. And with Cason, that's going to be like one of the first things that he does when he gets on the court. I think Daignault's going to love him. Mark Daignault loves Luguentz Dort in the way that he plays. And I don't want to just like equate Cason's game to Lou Dort's game and just saying like, we're just getting double. We're double down on Dort. We're double Dort. I don't think that's fair to Dort or to Cason to do that.
No, but I think
he's going to bring the intensity. He's going to bring the intensity on the defensive end, and
that's what it is.
And will play right away because of it.
Yeah. That's what it is. Like when I talk about him and Dort on the defensive end, it's just that they both are coming in with such high intensity resumes.
Yeah,
and you know, not everyone on the Thunder plays like that on defense. And so to have two of those guys who, you know, are like going all out on every play, and then you throw in like what he did on the defensive end was pretty interesting. So I was reading, this is from Coach Spin's write-up on him. So he averaged 3 stocks per 40 minutes. So combination of steals and blocks.
Yeah.
1.6% block rate, 3.7% steal rate. He's going to be the first freshman draft pick to hit those numbers while making at least 43 pointers since James Harden.
Wow.
Which is kind of interesting. On the other hand, like, you don't really think of James Harden's defense. But on the other hand, MVP.
Yeah. That's what he is. Undeniably MVP.
I mean, the guy he more gets compared to is Drew Holiday. If you look at their numbers, from their freshman years, like Drew at UCLA and Cason at Kentucky, they are very similar.
Yeah.
Now, Drew was younger at that time. He was only 18. But their numbers were very similar. And so that maybe could be like a high-end outcome. I think that would be reasonable as like a ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
But even like thinking about who he could be like just as like let's assume we didn't just draft like another all-star, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe OKC doesn't draft every single player as an all-star. Okay. I think someone like DeAnthony Melton.
Yeah.
And I was looking them up. They
That
have
seems like a very reasonable outcome for him.
Yeah. And they almost have the exact same measurements.
Yeah.
They have a 96% similarity score.
Yeah.
On the website I was using. And so I think somewhere in there is kind of what I'm thinking for Cason Wallace.
Yeah.
And so you would understand why, like in these mock drafts in the lead up to tonight's draft, why you started to see him a little bit lower. Because I would understand a team looking at some of these other guys and being like, I just want to take a huge swing.
Yeah. Koulibaly went 7th. So
I know, that was crazy. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, I was not either.
This does not feel as swingy as like taking a Koulibaly, where it feels like anything is possible.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, you know, look at all the Kentucky guards that have gone in the first round. Shaedon Sharpe, Ty Washington, Tyrese Maxey, Emmanuel Quickley, Tyler Hero, SGA, De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Jamal Murray, Devin Booker. Those are all the Kentucky guards that have gone in the first round since 2015.
It's a good
list. So there probably is some hidden upside here. And
that's the thing with Kentucky guards. It's like you get to bake in your hidden upside.
The difference being, like, I just read all those names. Like, he is obviously the best defender of all those guys. Like coming out of college.
Yeah, because like quickly turned himself into a good defender. He wasn't initially. Yeah,
and so he is a little different from those former guards in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited. It's weird to think of this as like a win now draft pick, but I really do think like he's going to get minutes next year, and he could potentially be helpful in his rookie season. Whereas I had more questions about some of the other guys.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think he contributes right away. I think he plays right away. I do want to address like some people believing that he's like upset that he got drafted by the Thunder.
Isn't that your fault?
I guess. I don't know. I didn't ask that question. I just thought I just thought the answer was interesting. But I did not think that the tone that was going to be picked up was going to be picked up that way. He really is like okay with being drafted by the Thunder. I mean, he grew up in like Richardson, Texas. It's not like he grew up in like some giant city. I think that he does. I think that he is genuine when he's saying like there's not any distractions there. Like I can just focus on basketball, which sounds like an insult to the city. And maybe it is.
Wait till he sees the eateries.
Dude, he doesn't know that we were ranked 80th in the world
in
best food city
in the USA.
Yeah, dude, it's good. He's gonna learn how great it is, and that's okay. No, but he's definitely more low key than a lot of these guys are, and that's just
Grady Dick.
Definitely a little more low key than Grady Dick. Grady Dick is he's an absolute joy of a person. He was hilarious. I got to be on the red carpet, and we got to interact with these guys like face to face, like almost everybody that was in the green room. Grady is hilarious.
I feel like he and Scotty Barnes are gonna do well together. Personality-wise.
Yeah, they might. I thought that was a weird Raptors pick.
Yeah, I was not thinking Raptors for him, especially with Kobe Buffkin there, because that was like in the hour before the draft, you started hearing like Kobe Buffkin to Toronto buzz, and then he was there,
trust me.
and then you take him.
I know, Buffkin boys. Yeah, I just think like all of that stuff with regards to him not not wanting to be in Oklahoma City is just like not true. Like he was very excited. Like he was smiling a lot. Joe and I and Daniel Bell basically just like the moment he was drafted and we knew that he was going to be on the Thunder, he went to probably like 25 different stations where he had to talk to 25 different people and like do all these things. And he eventually made it like we were the last one.
Yeah.
But we just kind of followed him around, just like we didn't miss like our chance to interview him. And it's an exhausting time. It's exhausting just like walking around watching him do it. And so he's just more low key. I don't think that he's upset at all. I think he's very excited to be a part of the Thunder. So I just want to address that. Like there's just some weird stuff where people have just assumed that he doesn't want to be in Oklahoma City, which is just not the case. So not the case, son. But yeah, no, I think that was great. Keyontae Johnson drafted 50th overall.
Oh, real quick, before we leave,
yeah. We're gonna leave.
Who do you think? Why do you think OKC moved up?
My guess is that they had intel that somebody else was going to take him.
I know that's what I think. I mean, that's what I assume. Like, why else would you do it? But who?
Because otherwise, then you wouldn't. I mean, I guess Orlando was going to take him,
or maybe someone. Because I was trying to figure it out. Like
somebody else was trying to trade up to get him.
Yeah, maybe it must have been someone else trying to trade up.
But I think I would have had that logic more so if it was like taking on Bertans, like and giving up maybe something else.
Yeah.
But also, like the thing about it is, like taking on Bertans that's a lot of money to just take on to move up 2 slots. That's a lot of money, and so there may have not been many ownership groups that'd be willing to do that. And also owners that are like have the ability to just like take on that money without having to give back a bunch, which is why that's why we always drew lines to it, to that trade specifically.
Do you think
they're tearing down everything behind me?
Yeah,
it might get so loud. I need to work my mute button.
Do you think that they made that trade, absorbed Bertans' contract to shut us up for the summer about free agency? Because their cap space has shrunk a lot.
Yeah, it's gone. I mean, it's pretty much gone. That was always going to be the case. I'm glad they did it. I'm glad they ripped the Band-Aid off.
Because now it's going to be harder. I mean, they obviously could still trade him in another trade.
Sure,
but
I think he'll be on the team. I think he'll play some. I don't know how good he'll be, but I think that I've just seen Mark Daigneault do a lot with players that have been limited in other places.
What was the number of games he has to hit?
I think it's a percentage. It's like 70% of the games or something like that.
Okay. If you don't know what we're talking about, if Bertans hits a certain percentage of the games next year in terms of playing in them, his contract for the following year gets guaranteed. It's a player option, but like the full amount can be guaranteed.
Yeah.
But if he plays less than 75% of the games, only $5 million is guaranteed. Now he can still pick that up and get paid that, but it would only be $5 million guaranteed. So I think there's zero chance he's playing in 75% of the games.
0%. That's a part of the value of the contract, and like part of the reason why you'd be willing to do that.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think he plays,
and it makes him a potential trade chip at the trade deadline.
Yes,
because they could trade him to another team, and that team knows that it's only going to be a $5 million cap hit the following year, and they could do this again with another contract going into the following season, like 2 years from now.
Yeah, totally. If you're hearing all this noise, if you're listening to the podcast, like they're literally tearing down like the media, everything in this media workspace. So apologies for that. Keyontae Johnson from Kansas State, selected at 50th overall.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really know if he'll be the third 2A spot. I assume that he would be, but very productive player out of Kansas State. Incredible story. Go read Kristen Peek's story. I put that out on my Twitter timeline about him, but essentially almost dies and then has to sit out a year, comes back, plays at K-State, is amazing. First team All Big 12, and is now a member of the Thunder. And he shot the ball well. The dude can really shoot the ball.
Yeah, and it feels like, he's another one of these wings. put him in the category with like Aaron Wiggins, of guys who were not highly drafted, and if they're going to stick, it's because they're going to shoot the ball well, most likely.
Yeah.
Like, if they're going to stick on this team. So some numbers on him: 45% on over 100 catch and shoot attempts, 54% on unguarded attempts, only 34% on contested looks. So some good numbers there, but you know, I'm not. I'll be honest. I didn't know a lot about him when he was drafted, so I don't have any strong opinions.
Yeah,
he's also the 50th pick.
Yeah, he's the 50th pick. He's ultra aggressive. I think he's got a shot to be an NBA player. He's also 23, so he's older. So if you wonder why he went later, it's like he had health problems. Plus, he's older. Yeah, and then there were some charges that were eventually dropped against him too, which are, I'm sure that obviously the Thunder would do their due diligence on those kind of things. So like, there's a lot of reasons why he might have dropped, but as far as just like a basketball player goes, the dude is extremely productive and was really, really good last year for K-State. And he knocked out Kentucky. This is Joe Masato mentioned this to me many times. He's very excited about it. That oh my gosh, it's so loud. That K-State knocked out Kentucky from the tournament. And that happened again the previous year where Arkansas knocked out Gonzaga. So there you go.
Was there anyone as the second round was going on? Because there were some names falling that you know we knew and we had talked about. Was there anyone you were hoping either the Thunder would like move back into the second to get?
I mean, I wondered about Rupert.
Yeah,
you know, as he like began to slip. I thought about Max Lewis as well.
Yeah, I think he went 40.
Sissoko.
Yeah, he went to the Spurs. Rupert goes to the Blazers.
Yeah. No, I those are a couple that I thought of for sure. But I like the Keyontae Johnson pick. I think that it's gonna. I think he can play. So, okay, I'm gonna end this podcast because I think this is like they're sending me a message right now. You're gonna hear right after this and all of the clanking. You're gonna hear me talking to new Thunder lottery pick. It's just like so funny. New Thunder lottery pick Cason Wallace right after he was drafted. Thanks so much for listening to our podcast. We'll talk to you guys again next week.